Welcome to Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. I'm your host, Lashonda Counsel Rogers. In each episode, we have authentic and entertaining conversations about the impact of the law on women. You can find this show on my website, www.thecounselfirm.com, and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Now, please join me in Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. Today, I am here with Nicola Robinson. Hi, Nicola. How are you?
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
Of course. I cannot have life lessons in law without my girls, my friends, just people who are doing big things, and you are doing big things. And one of the big things that she is doing is that she is the co-owner of SR Law Group. So what is SR Law Group?
So, SR Law Group is a boutique estate planning and elder law firm. We are right outside of Atlanta in Douglasville, Georgia, and we really help people understand what estate planning is and what are those documents that you want to really make sure you have in place to protect your family should something happen to you. Should you become incapacitated, have a stroke, or maybe have a heart attack, or God forbid you do pass away. We want to make sure that your family is protected and everyone really has a clear understanding of what needs to be done at that point.
Got you. Okay, so educate me,
Okay.
educate the world, educate everyone who's listening. So estate plan, what are some of the key documents? Because I know the main thing when I think of estate planning, and I'm thinking most people who are watching, we're thinking about a simple will, but it's much more than that.
It is. And that's usually the phone call that I get. Most people call my office and they're like, I just need a will. I just need a basic will. And a will is a part of your estate plan. It's one of the documents that we often prepare for our client, but we often do a comprehensive plan because a will is only a valid document after you've passed away.
Okay.
If you have a stroke, you're still here. If you have a heart attack, you're still here. So we still want to do the additional documents that are going to allow other people to serve as what's called your agent. They're going to be able to do things on your behalf. There's so many little day-to-day things that we do ourselves that we just don't even think about it. We take it for granted because we're able to go to the bank, write our own checks. We call Comcast on our own. We call AT&T on our own, but if you had a stroke or a heart attack and now we need a family member to do those things for us, they're going to need some authority to be able to do that. Comcast is not going to talk to them. AT&T is not going to talk to them unless you have a power of attorney. So that's one of the documents that we often say is a part of your estate planning toolkit. There are several others, but if you want to talk about the most important, I urge everyone to make sure if they do nothing else or they hear nothing else from today's lesson, make sure you have a good power of attorney in place because it's so tragic when people come to me and somebody's had a heart attack or there's a stroke or dementia. That's one of those things that, we don't really see coming sometimes. And now we have a family member that's wandering around in the streets and it's like, we need to be able to help them. Well, without the proper paperwork, you really won't be able to do anything without a court order. And that is expensive and that takes time. So in order to prevent having to go through that, we can do a power of attorney on the front end and kind of cut down on all the legal obstacles on the back end when you don't have those documents in place.
Okay. So tell me your response when, and I'm sure you have heard this way too many times, I don't need a will because I don't have anything.
Oh my God. I tell people if you are over the age of 18 and you have anything, if you got a car, if you got clothes, if you got some shoes in the closet, you need at least some basic estate planning documents. Now, they may evolve and get more complex as you continue to, buy property or you continue to make some investments and stuff like that. But unless you are under 18 living at home with your parents who actually own everything that you have, you probably need some type of estate planning documents. Because if nothing else, you've at least named the people who would make healthcare decisions for you. You've named the people who would make financial decisions for you. So I urge people to not just think about the stuff that they have.
Mhm,
Estate planning entails decision makers, not just where
mhm,
my stuff's gonna go if something happened to me.
mhm, mhm. So, what happens if someone unfortunately passes away and they do have stuff? They're over 18, they're out of the house, they're not supported by their parents, and they don't have a will or any type of directive in place.
Usually that leads to chaos. That is what we see most often. Unfortunately, that's when you hear those stories in the news about family fights and disputes and everything because there was no directive. There was no direction for anyone. And so you'll hear about this family member is petitioning to be over the estate and this other family member is objecting to it. And so that means you've died intestate. You died without a will or you die without any directives. And so that is when the family now has to go to a court and a judge has to make that decision. And the thing I tell people is when you say, I'm not going to do anything, you are making a decision. You've
Right.
decided that you're just going to let the courts handle it. They don't know your family. They have to stick to the letter of the law. And so if you are estranged from your sister, or if you are estranged from your husband and you didn't talk to him 4 years, but you never actually got that divorce, he may end up with everything because you never took the steps to make sure that he didn't.
Yeah, and I can guarantee, although, you would get paid off of this, um, people don't understand. If you die without a will and there's fighting, it costs to
It costs
fight.
a lot of money. It
I mean,
costs
not taking money out of your
but
mouth, but
you
it
know,
it costs.
it does, and I honestly enjoy the estate planning, the preemptive side of things.
Right.
I make a ton of money on the other side, don't get me wrong, but I would rather people understand how much they can do to prevent all of that, because the reality is when we end up in court, there's hurt feelings, there's
Mhm.
emotions from childhood, all of this stuff gets stirred up, and then the person who passed away, your legacy is tarnished because of that. So now everybody, all they remember is the fact that you didn't do anything and we've spent all this money and we've been in court for years because you failed to plan. So I tell people you can do it on the front end and minimize all of that or eliminate all of that altogether.
Mhm. So, how formal does a will have to be? Because, we've all seen these movies where, let's say, if you go to Medea's house and you flipped over the mattress and you saw a piece of paper that said, Auntie Susie May, I leave everything to Pookie G. So, how formal does it really have to be enforceable?
So, it really does depend on the state you're in.
Okay.
Some states do let you write, your last wishes on a napkin, and that's good enough. Not every state is like that. So, for your audience, I don't know where everybody is, but you wanna make sure you understand what is acceptable in your particular jurisdiction. Some states require you must be at least the age of 14. Georgia says you must
Mhm.
at least be of sound mind and over the age of 14. Understand what the boundary of your estate is. And then it has to be signed by two witnesses. It does not have to be notarized, but it does need
Okay.
to be signed in front of two witnesses. Now, when we prepare documents, obviously we have what's called a self-proving affidavit, and that is notarized because that's an extra layer of protection. That's an extra layer that says, hey, court, this is my last will and testament. This is my wishes. So that helps with minimizing the fighting.
Got you. Got you. So, once your will is drafted, um, where do you keep it? Do you keep a copy of your client's will and then they take it home, or do you advise them to share it with a family member? Do you file it with the courts? I mean, how do people find it when it's time?
So that is a great question, and I'll share a story with you. I know a lot of people know who Jackie Joyner Kersee was, famous
Mhm.
athlete. Everybody knew she in her family knew she had done her estate planning. They couldn't find it. And so
Wow.
her husband and her mother spent years in court fighting over her estate because if you've done it and nobody can find it, it is just as if you've never done it. So that is
Right.
almost complete waste of time. So for our clients, we do keep a copy here in our office, just more for our personal filing, but we
Mhm.
always give our clients their original document as well as a copy set. And in their copy set, it has a form that specifically says, "My originals are housed," and you fill that in so other people will know. Now, if you have some concerns or fear that family members will try to destroy that document, because that's one of the things people can destroy it to revoke it, to say that it never
Right.
existed. So if you have a real concern about that, we do encourage clients to file it in the probate court, the clerk of court for the county in which they live. Almost
Okay.
all counties, they have this service where you can just go and file it. You pay a nominal fee and they give you a receipt. So that receipt is proof that the county has the original document. Because when it comes to your will, you're going to need the original document. The courts are going to want original signature for it. That doesn't mean we can't probate a copy. It's just a much more tedious process if that will is lost. So you want to file it with the courts if you're concerned. Otherwise, if you just say, no, I just want to keep it safe, then you can put it in a safe, a small safe that you bought from Walmart or something that you might have in the house. Just make sure that the person you trust has access to it. I don't often advise my clients to file it in or put it in a safe deposit box. And
Okay.
the reason being is most of the times what people don't understand is they might have family members that have the information or have the key to that box, but they're not owners of the box. And so when you pass away, that box is going to be shut down. The bank has to shut it down. Then it requires us to get a court order to be able to open the box. And that might be 3, 4, 5 months down the road. And so if your will has your wishes to be buried and have this
Ah,
beautiful ceremony, but we didn't get this court order until 5 months later, you might have been cremated already. And so those are the things that you want to take into consideration. So if you're going to put it in a safe deposit box, make sure somebody else is a co-owner on that box, not just have access to the box.
ma'am, there is so much to think about.
It is.
So, so tell me this. Now, people are curious, and I'll just say curious. So, if you file your will with the court, can anybody see it once you
Not
file?
when it's
Okay.
filed, not when you are still alive and it is filed.
Okay.
Now, once you, have passed away and it is now formally being admitted to the court for probate, it
Right.
becomes a public record, and then anybody can see it. So Pookie and all the rest of the cousins can come up and see what you left everybody. And so a lot of times we have clients who are concerned about privacy. They don't want Pookie and they don't want the neighbors or anybody else to be able to necessarily know what they're leaving other family members. And that's when you may want to look at alternatives like a trust. A trust allows for privacy. Only people that know you might have a trust are the people you've named in those documents. And so that's why you see a lot of celebrities, they tend to use trusts to be able to pass their assets.
See, I told you viewers that my folks are smart. Look, you hear this knowledge? Do you hear this knowledge? And Nicola, you are pursuing something that is also very unique in the estate planning world. You're pursuing an LLM. So we have a law degree, JD. So you're going above and beyond. So you're above my pay grade at this point.
Oh my
So tell
goodness.
us about the LLM. And I know that definitely sets you apart from some other estate planning attorneys.
Yes, in the sense that I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess, because I like
Okay.
school. Yeah, so after, lawyers complete their JD, we can practice for whatever. And then some of us decide we want to go back to school and do, I guess, what you would call a specialty degree. You don't necessarily
Mhm.
specialize in the legal world, but you can get these degrees in certain topics, in certain practice areas. And so I made the decision to go back to school to get my LLM in estate planning and elder law, because that's really all I do. And that's all I want to do. I stay in
Mhm.
my lane. I'm real good about that.
Well, that's good. See, you have to specialize in your lane. I tell people this all the time, shameless plug for myself, is that when you get into a truck accident, you need someone who knows how to do truck accidents.
Yes. Yeah.
and moi, you're looking at me. Um, and for you, when you need an estate plan, you need somebody who knows what the heck they're doing because that can be really tragic if that gets messed up
And
or it's not.
I'll tell you, I've seen family lawyers, no shade to them, but
Yeah.
some of them are like, "Oh, you just got a divorce. I'll do a basic will for you, no problem." And I've reviewed different documents over the years from other attorneys, and I can tell almost immediately when it's like these people did not do estate planning as their primary practice area because there's some things that I'm just like, "Oh, they could have done this much better." And I can a poorly drafted document is worse than no document sometimes. I have seen some
Amen.
tragedies. We
Amen.
actually a small shameless plug for my own podcast, Black Parents Aging. We just had an episode recently with a former client who had a poorly drafted document and the years we spent in court because of it. And he came on to kind of tell his own horror story because he tried to save money, got something
Mhm.
off the internet, thought that that was going to be good enough. And there was a lot of land at stake. And so we really ended up in court. We were finally able to get it settled, but I think it was what 2.5 years later, and a lot of money spent.
So let's talk about that. The whole Black parents aging. Because a lot of our viewers, we're in that position where we're in the middle. We have parents that need care potentially, and then we may have children. So we're like sandwiched in,
Yeah,
caring for both sides.
yeah.
So I guess that falls into the elder law area of your practice. So tell us what that is all about because I need to know. I
So,
need to.
it's a little different because, like, for you, anybody with a driver's license could be potentially a client for you.
Sure.
For divorce or family law attorneys, anybody that's married, that's need a divorce or got kids, that could be a potential client for them. Mine looks at a particular sector of the population. So
Okay.
usually people over the age of 60, 65, they're going into, what people used to call the golden years or
Yeah.
the third chapter of life. And so what we have found is their planning needs to look a lot different. It's different when you are 18 or 20, you don't have a lot. You just starting out. Your
Yeah.
debt is a lot higher than your actual assets. But
Right.
in the third chapter of life, your assets are typically much higher than your debt if you even have any debt at this point. And so now
Okay.
you're starting to think about, okay, what if I get sick? What if I need to go into a facility? Like, how would all of that play into the things that I have accumulated? Would I have to sell all of this off in order to pay for me to be in some type of facility? And that's the misconception. Most people think, "Oh, wow, dad needs to go in a nursing home. It's like a liquidation sale. We gotta get rid of
Right.
all this stuff in order to pay for it." But that isn't the case. With proper planning, we can do some things to preserve some of those assets and still be able to get dad into some type of facility. And so that is the conversation I'm having with my clients as they're in that season of life. Like, what was your ultimate goal when you paid off all these properties, when you saved up all this money? And then how can we still make sure that that goal is met and be able to get you into a facility or the type of care you may need later on in life? So we
Uh,
do some restructuring of assets, if you will, to be able to help our clients figure that out.
okay. Got you. So mainly elder care deals with, your care, your care. Am I saying it right? Elder care, elder law,
Elder law, but
elder
it
law.
and I'll say this, it is, each elder law attorney is different.
Okay.
So they're the ones that there are some elder law attorneys who look at, like, abuse or neglect
Okay.
within some type of facility. They're elder law attorneys that are like, "Okay, I review those contracts, I help you, negotiate getting your mom into some type of facility." Then there are ones like me who are like, no, I help you with just the asset planning and the ability to qualify to get into the facility. So even within elder law, you will find niches and specialties as well.
Okay. So if somebody is trying to force their parents to go to a facility, they don't need to call you.
No.
Okay.
Call me when Parents might need to go into a facility because we do what's called pre-planning. We do preemptive planning. Say if there's a family history of dementia, I want to make sure my assets are protected in case that happens that I need to go into the facility. We do that level of planning. But then there are people who call me that's like, no, grandma's already in the hospital, and the hospital is saying they cannot release her. She has to go to a facility. And so that is what we call crisis planning. And that's when we are looking at everything grandma owns and seeing what can we save and what we might have to liquidate and how are we going to pay for that facility. The average cost of a facility right now in Georgia is about $10,000 a month. And the average person stays in a facility 3 to 5 years. So you do that math and it's like, whoa, grandma might not have that kind of money. And so we have to really start thinking about what can we save, what can we preserve. And sometimes the answer is all of it, sometimes it's half, sometimes it's none. It really depends on the situation.
Wow, I did not I mean, I knew that these facilities were very expensive, but $10,000 a month, that that's interesting. Wow.
And so you
Wow.
think about maybe your parents have pension or 401k. Maybe they've already paid off the home that they live in, or maybe they have a rental property that they've also paid off at this time in life. And it's just like, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to have to sell the family home? Are we going to have to sell the rental property? But then it's like, okay, well, only dad's going into the facility. Well, where's mom going to live? And so we have to
Um,
kind of walk through all of that kind of stuff. The biggest fear or the biggest myth I get is everybody's scared that, well, if mom goes into the facility and we get Medicaid, then Medicaid is going to take our home. Like the government
yes.
can come and take the home. That is the one that we get all the time. And that is not quite true. The government don't want your home. Let me just tell you that now. Um,
Right.
but there are things that if the government does, if you use Medicaid to pay for the stay in that facility, they can put a lien on that property. And that's what's called a state recovery. So that's what people are afraid of, is a state recovery. But if you come in and you have this conversation with me early, we can talk about ways to not have to deal with that, how to get around that, if you will.
Wow, this is amazing. I mean, you're definitely enlightening me because, it's a tough conversation to have. I
And s
mean,
we deal with that a lot, and
very
the
tough.
reason the show is called Black Parents Aging is because what we have found is, especially in African American communities, we're not having these conversations with our parents. Like, you and I, we're professionals, we're busy. Our parents still look at us as kids, though, like,
Yes.
real talk, and so they're not, like, opening up the bank accounts to us. They're not explaining necessarily all of their assets to us. They're not even telling us really the full picture of their health. A lot of
Mhm.
times they just go to the doctor, they're like, "Oh, I'm fine." And then
Mhm.
and you as the children are left believing they're fine because that's what they told us. And
Uh-huh.
so I get these calls from panicked children that are just like, "What are we supposed to be talking about with our parents? What are we supposed to know? They're not talking to us about this. I'm trying to save for my children's college. I don't
Right.
have $10,000 a month for my parent."
Amen. Wow. Yeah, that's big girl talk. That's
Yeah,
that's that's serious stuff, but it has to happen because eventually everyone is going to go through this path.
yeah.
And yeah, it's just something that we as in our community, we don't want to talk about. We would just kind of want to put on blinders and just let the chips fall where they lie. And
And
that's a
usually
bad
it's
idea.
so unfortunate that that is the mentality that we've fallen into, because so many times if people had come to me earlier, we could have saved so much more. We could have done things so different. Time is a factor in estate planning. It is
Mhm.
a huge part of it. The earlier you start having these conversations with your parents, the earlier they start doing some proactive planning, the more we can put aside, the more we can have a plan for when they do become sick. Because there's nothing worse than we're in the middle of a crisis. Everybody's panicked, there's emotions high, and then I have to break the bad news that we gonna have to get rid of some of this stuff, or you're gonna have to just pay this $10,000 a month tab.
Wow. Wow. Well, on a brighter note, y'all, Nicola and I are foodies, okay? And we love to eat and we love to drink just a little
Just a little
bit. And
bit.
she is just a joy to hang out with, a super business owner, wonderful wife, mother. Um, so give us some parting words. And so I'll help prompt you.
Okay.
So my saying is to live legal, and that means let your ego go and live. Tell us about a time where you just had to let your ego go and just say, you know what, I'm going to live. I know that's a real deep, heavy question,
Ooh, right, you should have prepared me for that one.
but no, I like the candor, the
Okay, okay.
candor.
I had to let my ego go and live. I feel like I do that every day with these kids.
I know.
Like, honestly,
I get you.
it's such a different generation. Like,
It
we
is.
were raised with these, like, go to school, work hard type work ethics. And my kids are really showing me that there is just so much more living out there. There's so
Yeah.
much outside of that box and that paradigm. And so I'm really learning to just let go and trust. My son told me he wanna be a gamer. My daughter told me she wanna have a, like, TikTok. And, growing up, they don't those weren't didn't even exist when
Oh,
we
you
were
didn't say that. Oh, no, you
and
better not let
so,
that come out your
yeah,
mouth.
it's really hard as a parent to just be like, "Well, don't follow that because 'cause they're making millions."
They are.
And I'm
They
like,
are.
"Those" some parents used to grow when we were growing up, he was like, "Hopefully, I got the next Michael Jordan. I might have the next TikToker. I might
Yeah.
have the next gamer." So, I'm having to let go and just follow and kinda live with these choices and, explore these things with my kids. And that has been hard, I'm not gonna lie.
I know you're preaching to the choir. I'm right at that age. I got a little new teenager,
Mhm, I got a
and
preteen.
it's very difficult. I'm learning things from more advanced parents of teenagers. One thing is, as far as cosmetics, buy two.
Okay.
Let her have one, depending on what it is, and I have one because the sharing, no, no, no. Because what
Mm,
happens, it leaves my room, it goes to another room, and then I can't find it.
never
And
to be
I'm
seen
looking like,
again.
where's my stuff? And I used to tear up my house trying to find things, but now I go straight to my daughter's room.
Mhm.
And the level of care that I use with my things is not the same level of care that she uses with my things. So I was like, you know what? Go tear your stuff up. Leave mine right here.
Yeah.
So I get you. Amen, sister. Dealing with these kids. But unfortunately, our time is up. But
Aw.
Nicola, tell our viewers how they can, and listeners, how they can find you.
So we're on all social media platforms, SR Law Group. We are on all streaming platforms for our podcast as well, Black Parents Aging. And on that show, we just give tips and tricks about how to have those conversations with your parents when it's time to have that family meeting, about going into a facility, how to start looking for facilities, all of that kind of information that it's like 30 minutes. So you can listen to it on your drive to Kroger, but you're getting fed on some stuff that you might need to do with your parents. You can always visit our website, srlawgroup.com, or call the office 404-410-6505.
Awesome. Awesome. So, everyone, Nicola has dropped major nuggets for you that you have to take seriously. And for our personal injury clients that have probate needs, we send them to Nicola SR Law Group because it's so important to make sure that your paperwork is correct and that you're
Yes.
dealing with someone who's knowledgeable about the subject area. So I thank you for being so knowledgeable and being willing to share with our community and every community about how important this topic is and how important estate planning, elder law, because it is not sexy. We don't like to talk about it, but we always hear these things where we're like, wow, that was a shame. They didn't have anything. They're fighting over this, but that's what happens when
Yes.
we don't come to see you.
And I
So
tell people all the time, probate
mm,
court is a billion with a B, dollar
whatever.
industry
Yeah,
because they're counting on us not to do this. They know that most people will not take the time to do the work on the front end. And so when you think about when you don't do it, the judges get paid, the clerks get paid, the lawyers get paid. We're going to be at this for 4 or 5 years getting
Yeah.
paid. Like that's where the money is. And so it's like, how do you want your money to end up? Paying
Yeah.
lawyers and judges on the back end or just
Right.
paying my time on the front end?
Wow. Wow. I wish we had more time. So we're going to have you come back.
Okay.
But everyone, as always, it's my pleasure to bring you life lessons in law with Lashonda. So until next time, be good, be great, do all that makes your heart smile. Until next time. You've been tuning into Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. In each episode, we have authentic and entertaining conversations about the impact of the law on women. I hope you'll join me each time. You can find this show on my website at www.thecounselfirm.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. We appreciate your positive comments and reviews. And don't forget to share this show with others. I've been your host, Lashonda Counsel Rogers.